Hey everyone, Rob from Southgate Media Group here. Before we get started with this podcast, we have a quick message. If this is your first time checking out the show, we love that you found us and we really hope you enjoy it. What we have to say is for the subscribers. If you enjoy our shows, would you please donate to help keep these going? We don't want to have to put traditional ads on these shows, but this does cost money. So we really do rely heavily on donations. To make a donation to the show, please go to our website, www.southgatemediagroup.com. Go to the page for the show, and in the upper right-hand corner is a donate button. It takes you right to PayPal, and you can donate whatever amount you want. Thanks a lot for listening, everybody. And now on with the show. Welcome to Live at the Blue Box. Tonight we are doing an Input Junkie satellite. What that means is we have a show called Input Junkie when we talk about cool things that we've seen or eaten or read or listened to. And then the satellite ones are where we do interviews. And tonight we have a really cool interview. We've got Rich Wagner here who, let's hear it for him. He owns Rediscover Records, which all you have to say is Rediscover Records. First of all, great name because we all know what that means. Second of all, I love records. I love vinyl. So this is going to be a lot of fun to talk music and vinyl and everything. Rich, thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me here. It's an honor, a pleasure.
Oh, it's not an honor. You're going to see it's not an honor very soon. All right, so we can sit down.
Okay.
This is informal, man. So, Rich, how long? Let's get the business stuff out of the way first. How long have you had Rediscover Records?
We started the store in June of 2010, and originally we were in with one of the antique shops here in town.
Okay.
And then ideally the goal was to open the store as its own storefront, but having it in a shared space with some other vendors afforded us the opportunity to kind of nurture the business along, promote it, get a website started, social media, Twitter, Facebook page, word of mouth, probably most essential. So that all started in June of 2010.
Yeah, and you guys, I mean, it always seems like I see people in there. It seems like it's a pretty hopping place, which really I love because I'm an old record store guy. You know, like growing up, I haunted the record stores. Like Flipside was out by me, way before like Sound Warehouse and those big mega things. I used to go to all these little hole in the walls. The turntable. Do you remember the turntable?
Yeah.
And Rolling Stone Records. Yeah, I used to go out there, and even the his partner Rock Records before they had their split.
Mm-hmm.
I was all about the vinyl. So seeing your
Rose.
place, Rose Records. I used to love it. Used to go downtown just for that.
Here in Elgin, there were several before that I don't remember, but the one that I used to go to was called Apple Tree, and it was on Larkin across from Jewel, and then they moved over to in that place by along McLean. You know, the Taco Bell is in there, and a couple other places.
That's awful. That's like if you go, well,
the
you know,
Elgin Mall, right?
Now it's a Cash for Gold. You know, like it's like the worst. Now it's a Taco Bell.
But we moved to this spot, our own spot, in just March of 2014. So almost a whole year already, yet it still feels kind of new.
Yeah.
You know, just having my own.
Although it smells like old vinyl, but it looks new. Yeah. So do you? That was a joke. Nobody laughed at that one. I got booed. Oh, now my night's been made. For vinyl, let's talk vinyl. Let's talk records. One thing, you sell both new and used, correct?
Yes.
I am really intrigued by the fact that bands are putting out vinyl again. I was in Barnes & Noble, and they had a whole section of brand new vinyl. I mean, this is kind of exciting.
It is. Everyone who's putting out music today, from the big names to the small independent artists traveling around from venue to venue in a van and sleeping on floors are trying to put out vinyl. I brought a few examples over, and I brought, if you've been to the shop,
no, I'm kidding.
I use a pizza bag because
it's the right size.
These are from Danny's Pizza, and it's just a little cross promotion that.
Shameless plug for Danny.
Yeah.
Oh, right on top. Look at that one.
So this is an example of an old album that's been repressed and remastered by.
So that's a new remaster of Zeppelin.
Right.
Oh.
Say what it is, because people listening can't see.
Yeah, you're right, of course. It's not video. It's
I
Led
have
Zeppelin.
a face for radio. Oh, I was waiting all day to say that.
You need a new writer, let me tell you. Yeah, this is Led Zeppelin, man. I mean, first song, Good Times, Bad Times, on vinyl. It doesn't sound any better than that. That's just fantastic. And I'm a big fan of the vinyl sound, which I'm sure you are too. Today, I was talking to somebody about you being on, and they said, I don't get it. I don't get why. They're like, you can listen to CDs. You can listen to MP3s. And I was like, yeah, but you're not the target audience because I hear the difference. And the idea of listening to Zeppelin on vinyl, so rich. I love the little pops and everything.
Right. It doesn't have to have the pops and crackle. I mean, there's enough records out there that weren't taken care for that are really an indictment against vinyl. But if a person is taking care of their records or they bought from a nice collection, it can sound
sound perfect.
Immaculate.
Yeah, see, mine don't because I was a DJ for a while and I had to play my albums over and over and over and they got beat up. I do have some that are in good shape, but I still love it. Like my punk stuff, my Husker Du on vinyl is just amazing.
Here's a couple
let's see what else you got.
Examples.
I saw another one coming up that I'm freaking out about.
Here's a newer one. Black Keys, Turn Blue, came out on vinyl.
The Black Keys, as their new albums are coming out, are putting out vinyl at the same time, right?
Yeah.
Now, are they being pressed by big companies? Like I saw this is Atlantic. Are the big boys doing these, or are they more independent?
Both. Independent, DIY kind of.
Because Jack White owns a pressing company.
Right.
So is he like really a big reason this is happening?
He's been a huge advocate, and I think all these other little record shops and even chains carrying records, box stores, are all kind of riding his coattails because of his advocacy of vinyl and, such a proponent of it.
Yeah.
Because I jotted down some notes before I came over. His album, Lazaretto, sold 86,000 copies. That's just the vinyl
on
copies.
Vinyl?
Yeah.
86,000 copies.
And vinyl itself was up 52% from last year, which it was already high. But conversely, CDs were down about 15%. Even digital downloads were down about 12%. Now, some of that, you can skew the statistics however you want. People are listening to more Spotify and things like that.
Yeah, I was going to say, those types of services seem to be super popular, so I can see how sales would be dropping.
But even with all the...
But why is vinyl going up as those drop?
Well, the funny thing is it's still only 6% of music sales in general, so it's still very much a niche market, a loyal niche market.
Yeah, but I'm telling you what, if an indie band sells 86,000 copies of something, they're going to be awfully happy about that. So that's a real testament. Here's
an example of the biggest of the big putting their things on vinyl. Taylor Swift, 1989.
You know what's sad? I was going to ask who's that. I don't know Taylor Swift. I mean, I know who she is, but I'm looking at this cover. I'm like, what is that? So are bands like that, is she an anomaly or is this?
No, Meghan Trainor vinyl has been in the shop. We've had the Frozen soundtrack.
Get out! Frozen on vinyl.
Yeah.
So even like Disney has jumped into the mix with this?
Yes.
Get out.
Here's and then some of these not necessarily household names. Joy Division,
Household name at our house. We know who Joy
Right.
Division is.
More an up and coming. This would be an example of more of an independent artist. Lydia Lovelace. This is a 2014 release.
Yeah.
This got a lot of buzz, in pitchfork circles and things like that.
I'm glad you said that. That brings up another thing. Now, before we go on, does anybody else listen to vinyl, or is this something that you're kind of like, wow, I haven't really? A few people. Because we have an old Bang Olufsen quadraphonic turntable is what we're using. It's pretty awesome. Of course, it's not through a quadraphonic stereo, so we're not using it that way, unfortunately, but it does have the hookups. It's cool. And we do love vinyl. Those of you that don't have it, I'm just going to urge you to explore it a little bit. If you're a music person, you can even buy those. They're not great turntables, but it's an entry point. Those like Ion turntable where it's something you can plug into your computer or USB it. Not the best way to go, but it's a turntable. Pick up a couple of used albums and try it out, and I'll bet you be a convert. I really do. Even you Taylor Swift fans, I see that on there. So nobody laughed at that. I'm not laughing either. It's ugly.
We carry sometimes an Ion turntable. ION is a brand.
Right.
And then these Crosleys, which are kind of all in one. You don't need a stereo. It's
that's the thing that's like a jukeboxy type thing, right?
Yeah, they have a kind of a retro look or a suitcase look. And look at a lot of these records come with an MP3 download. The new releases.
Oh, that's smart. So you can buy the vinyl and then just download the MP3. So you've got it both ways.
Exactly. As much as the music industry has shot themselves in the foot in recent years, someone was thinking when they said, let's give them a digital download, because a lot of these people aren't like Luddites or, living in the past playing records. They're pretty tech savvy. They're listening to music. They're streaming bands. They've downloaded things.
Now, I have a question for you as a vinyl guy, as a record guy. Mm-hmm. What is it about it? It's a hard question.
It's a whole experience. I mean, there's a couple people here who can tell you it's just the whole listening experience. It's not just background noise. I mean, you have something to hold on to. You have a sleeve. Oftentimes there's a lyric sheet inside or fancy liner notes of who played on what. Then you put it on there's just this whole act. It's almost this spiritual,
it's an
musical
right?
act of putting the needle on the record, just watching it spin, and then you just kind of, there's no track 1. Skip to track 5. It's right. You listen to side 1, and then oftentimes you put it over to side 2, and it's just this whole ritual.
I'm with you. I'm glad you brought up the sleeve, because that's probably the biggest thing that drew me back. Like, I had the hardest time getting rid of some of my albums because of that. I remember when I was younger and before all this electronic stuff, sitting in my bedroom as a kid with I probably had 200-300 albums, right? And I would lay in my bed and I would look at the liner notes, and you'd hold the disc and you'd look at the pictures, and that's a really great experience that's lost. You see CDs now, and they may have great artwork, but it's like this big. It's this little tiny thing, and there's something about this size. This is going to sound really super dorky, but I have a Laserdisc player. Now, we don't really play them anymore, but it's hard to get rid of those discs because of the album art. The album art that's good, it's something that is like part of you, and it is part of an experience. Even getting up to switch to side B, there's something about that. Yeah, she says the pops and crackles too. Like, we have the Story of the Stones, the English pressing. Okay, that box set.
Yeah,
and ours is pristine. So when you listen to it, like you said, no pops, no cracks, but there's a warmth to it. There's something different than listening to the digital version. Mm-hmm. Our Talking Heads albums, when we first got those, I'm like, well, they were digitized. I remember Naked, that album. was the first one fully produced. Like, this is a CD, all digital. But you know what? The vinyl sounds better. So I'm glad you brought up, like, that experience. Well, you got more for us. Let's see what else you got.
Well,
More good one.
Arctic Monkeys brand new release or 2014 release. And then they have a thing called Record Store Day, which is the third Saturday in April. And it's
Mark your calendars.
A few hundred special releases that may be reissues of things, special singles.
This is something we do like free comic book day. We always promote that. Now this has hit our radar. We are going to be promoting this record day.
Yeah, I've
Record
already
Store
put
Day.
in a couple orders, but here's an example. Connor Oberst from Bright Eyes put out a 7-inch single in November, Record Store Day. Here's a Bowie, a new Bowie. It's not new material, but it's an example of
Like a new pressing?
Yeah, of an older song that they specifically released for Record Store Day. And there might be, I don't know the numbers on this, but some of these they're numbered. So this is actually have a number. This is number 5,139 of maybe only 6,000, maybe only 10,000 made.
Wow.
And then there's other things that may have never been pressed to vinyl at all. So they'd make like the Little Miss Sunshine soundtrack, things like that.
Just available at Record Store
Even
Day.
Tuesday, as far as new releases, we'll have the Pulp Fiction soundtrack, and it's on a picture disc.
Oh, really?
Yeah, with Uma Thurman on the...
Now, I got a question about picture discs. When I was younger, like I have Sgt. Pepper on picture disc. I never played it. Okay, I actually have it framed right now. Here's my question. I always heard that those weren't as high quality vinyl, so they were more of a collectability than they were something you wanted to listen to. Is that true?
That is true. In fact, some of the older ones that we do have over there, they say that right on the sleeve. It may not have the same exact quality as a regular record. It's just more of a novelty, maybe something to display or
Yeah, I
just
mean, we
to
have it up
have.
on our wall,
Yeah.
you know. But they did Pulp Fiction that way.
Yeah.
That's
We'll
fantastic.
have it Tuesday.
Wow. And what do records go for now? Like on average, like Pulp Fiction soundtrack, that should be two discs, right?
Actually, it's just one.
Oh,
They
I thought it was
start
double.
at like $16 to $18 for a new release, and then they go on up from there. I mean,
So it's not much different than the way CDs
18
are
to
priced.
25. For some reason, the Pulp Fiction soundtrack will be 35.
Oh, wow.
Maybe because it's a picture disc. Maybe because it's Pulp Fiction and it's never
Right.
been on vinyl before. So,
Will they have a regular one too, or is it just the picture disc only?
as far as I know, it's just the picture disc. Maybe they'll have a regular one too. I don't know.
Now, I thought that one, speaking of that particular disc, I thought that was on vinyl. That was never on vinyl before?
Well, don't quote me on it. As far as I know.
I thought it was because there was a place that I used to go in Evanston. It wasn't Wax Tracks or Dr. Wax or Dunk. Who knows? I went to so many of these shops. But there was one in Evanston, and I remember seeing, I swear they had the Pulp Fiction soundtrack. It was like my first experience with it, but it was right when CDs were coming out, and I ended up buying the CD. And now I'm really regretting it. But
That's
now
why
I'm
some
thinking
of those-
picture disc sounds awesome.
Some of those 90s era albums are hard to find on vinyl. One could be like Incubus. They may have pressed less than 1,000 of
Wow.
them. Only because it was a CD era. So everyone was buying CDs.
Yeah.
So they may have just pressed 1,000 of them just for the couple holdouts who were still buying records at the time.
Now, for Record Store Day, is this once a year or is it multiple? Because Comic Book Day, I think they do it twice a year.
They have two. The big one is in April.
Okay.
The third Saturday. This year, it'll be April 18th.
So everybody in this room on April 18th needs to walk into your shop.
Yeah,
And,
9 South.
yes.
9 South Spring Street.
There you go. See how he's laying it in there so you can start doing that? So Rediscover Records, 9 South Spring Street. Spring Street?
Spring Street.
Spring Street, yeah.
It's kitty corner right
Springsteen.
from my spiritual advisor.
So for you, obviously you're into vinyl. What are your bands? I mean, like, I know for me, I would have 100 bands, and then that wouldn't even be touching close to what I have. But I know that I have certain ones that are all about the vinyl on. So what would you say are yours?
Oh, I've always been a Beatles fan. I do like Bruce Springsteen a lot. I've probably seen him 25 times.
Oh, wow.
I like, as far as new, I try and stay current with new music. I like this Lydia Loveless record a lot. I listen to bands like Wilco or Radiohead. Sunvolt is another band.
Yeah, Sunvolt's great. I'm a big Wilco guy.
Yeah.
And big Radiohead, so you're hitting all of them. So yeah, I get it. I think that a lot of the guys in our age range, I'm just kind of clumping us in as a range, would have the same bands. The guys that are likely to buy vinyl would probably say the same types of bands. Wouldn't you say that's probably accurate?
Yeah.
Can you
And
kind of
then
tell them
just-
when they walk in the shop, like, yeah, you're going to want a Wilco album?
Possibly.
Yeah.
It's a younger demo coming in, though. It's people that are under 30. It's
Really?
didn't grow up with records. It's
Really? Now, are they
Under-
looking for it for, like, mixing or
no, they're buying them mostly to play.
to listen?
We get the small percentage of DJ type people coming in looking to create beats and things or sounds, but mostly it's people who wouldn't have grown up with vinyl coming in to buy records. It goes from like teenagers, to people under 30, and then
Yeah.
people who have came back to it full circle, pun intended, who may have switched to CDs like everyone else and then thought, oh, I'm going to start buying records again. And you know what? No one has to, like, go whole hog and be a snob about it. Or not even necessarily a snob. I mean, it's like it's like I tell people, it's kind of fun. You buy a few records, you set some time to play them, and then you can still have whatever 10,000 songs on your hard drive, or a few hundred on your phone.
Yeah, I
or whatever.
totally agree with that. I was.
You can have like the best of both worlds musically.
I found that as we're getting rid of certain records that we have, because we have a ton, there are some of them that we're keeping because we're going to end up at the end of it, hopefully have a very small collection. But when I say small, maybe 100 vinyl. That these are the 100, and this is how we want to listen to them. You know what I mean? I don't need the Muppets soundtrack on vinyl.
No.
Although if it is
Well, you
Paul
could.
Williams doing it, maybe. wait a minute. Maybe I'm rethinking this. There are certain ones we'd want to keep. And you're right. It doesn't have to be an all or nothing. Why not make
Right.
it part of the mix?
And some of them, you may have had as a CD, and you think, I'd really like to get that one on vinyl. I hear that a lot. So,
Yeah.
You may have had London Calling on a CD, but then you think, oh, it's on vinyl. I'm going to get that on vinyl. Or someone came in and bought a Beastie Boys record yesterday that we posted a video to on Facebook, and they came in right after work and picked it up.
Was it licensed to ill?
No, it was
I just
Check Your Head.
Oh, Check Your Head, sure. I just remember, for a while, every record store I went in, that was always right at the front counter because it was the plain, and they'd have the jacket open, and it was, forever. I'd see that one, and there was a Madonna album that always, it was the one that was blue, and she had the blonde hair, and awful music inside. It was that one. Yeah. Those are the two I just always remember seeing. So that's really cool. Now, I also am a jazz guy. Do you get jazz guys in there? Because I would think that would be a big market for vinyl.
Yeah, all the time. We probably have a couple hundred jazz records just from common Count Basie kind of things to Sonny Stitz,
Oh,
stuff
Sonny
like
Stitt
that.
on vinyl's awesome.
The heavyweights come and go fast. Like if we get a Miles Davis or a John Coltrane record, those kind of things, those get bought almost as soon as they come in, even with our modest foot traffic. And even some of those old jazz records they've pressed again, like you can get John Coltrane repressed.
Yeah,
Miles Davis kind of blue.
Barnes and Noble, they had My Favorite Things.
Yeah.
And I was kind of surprised by that, but then I thought, oh, that makes sense. It's a huge album.
But we have all sorts over there. I mean, even just if you don't have a record player, just to look around, it's all pretty well organized. Different genres. There's punk and metal and polka, harmonica.
Oh, hey, man.
Big band, Dixieland.
When I was a DJ, I had
spoken word.
We had a cassette. Don't open Rediscover cassettes,
No.
please. That's the worst.
We have cassettes over there.
Don't Rediscover 8-tracks either, because that's even worse. Although I do have the Bee Gees Sgt. Pepper soundtrack on 8-track. I do. Boo. I'd buy the vinyl because Frank Zappa's on it. It's awesome. Where was I going with that? Do you remember? Yeah, nobody knows. ADD. You know what? A shiny object just happened over there.
Yeah, squirrel.
Squirrel. I actually had a point, and I have lost it in my mire. So, I know a place I wanted to bring up. This wasn't the thought. This was another thought. Did you ever go into the city to Jazz Record Mart?
It's
remember
still
that
there.
place?
It's still there. I've been there
Yeah, but
once or twice.
That's not the old Jazz Record Mart.
No.
It
yeah,
moved a couple times, and now it's like CDs and
No, they have a lot of records. It's like just below Michigan Avenue,
I used to go
but
there.
along the river.
My dad's a jazz musician, so we used to. He'd go in there, and I remember being tortured. We had our big old brown station wagon, and I'd sit in there with my mom, and I'd be reading my comic books. I know that's a shocker, and I'd sit in the way back, and be reading my comic books, and he'd be in Jazz Record Mart for like 4 hours. Because you fall into a record store. That's another thing. You go into a CD store, which there hardly are now, but I usually knew what I wanted, and I'd go in and I'd get it. A record store, you dig. You look. There's something about you smell them. It's like a weird thing. And my dad would be in there forever. But I just remember that old one, man. It would be like John Coltrane discs. They had Japanese pressings. They had all these collectibles. It was so awesome. That's when records were big. Mm-hmm. So you never made it in there, huh?
Not the
original.
No.
Yeah, it was record geek heaven. If you're into jazz.
Mm-hmm. Well, I learned a lot just from being there, listening to records. So maybe jazz wasn't my forte, but being in there, listening to, just picking things to listen to, kind of out of my box. Or a customer would come in and, tell me something, or this is a great record. You should listen to this, or this is one of my favorites ever. So I thought I'm going to listen to it. So I've expanded my music horizons being around.
Well,
all
and
the records.
that's something for your client base, because you have listening parties, don't you, or is something like that? Like you spin records and
we do a thing with Side Street Studio Arts where it's once a month. We call it Turntable Tuesday, and it's pretty chill. You just bring anyone who wants to bring over a few records can bring over a couple records, and we just take turns playing them. Usually it's in the gallery there where they're located, just here on Ziegler Court. So we'll start that up again in March.
Cool. You know what? I'm gonna throw this out there right now. The week before Record Store Day, so whatever that is, the second week of April.
Third.
Yeah, but the second week is the week before.
Yeah.
We're talking the same language. I think we should bring in a turntable here, and before we start the podcast, do the same kind of thing. I'll bring in a few albums, you bring in a few, and anyone listening, bring in a couple albums, and let's have a little listening party, and we can talk about it, because I think we should really promote Record Store Day. I would love it if we filled you up with people checking it out.
Yeah, that'd be great. Actually, though, it's really kind of brings people out of the woodwork, too, because there'll be a line out the door. Normally we open at 11. We'll open at 8 a.m. that day, and there'll be a line down the
Really?
block to get in that day. It's almost like
It's like your Black
a
Friday.
Black Friday, exactly.
Wow.
For
Black
record
Vinyl
stores.
Friday.
Yeah. And it's really, I'm not alone, or my store isn't alone in this, that it's almost a month of business
Wow.
in one day. Maybe that's an indictment on the rest of the month, but
Well, you're closed the rest of the month.
well,
I think
that's
you're
when I
shooting
say
yourself in the foot.
I have both customers come in. Both of the customers come in that day. John and another guy.
And you know what? He said you come out of the woodwork, so I would be offended by that. It's so cool. Now, you have another record over there.
This is another reissue. It's the Zombies, Odyssey, and Oracle. Kind of the biggest hit on here would have been Time of the Season. But this is like a real kind of psychedelic era album. You know,
I'm going to go so far as to say it's a masterpiece. I was not aware of the album. This is why I wanted to get to this one.
It's like early Pink Floyd's early Pink Floyd almost.
Well, you know what's cool about
That's
this?
possible.
This was an album that the Beatles cited as like one of the most important albums. Like John Lennon was a huge fan of this album. And now I can't remember if this predates Sgt. Pepper or not. It's right at the same time.
It's, I think, 68 or 9, so it's after.
It's after.
Yeah.
This album, when I was exposed to it the first time, I was working in an electronics store. And we'd talk music and geek out about speakers and stuff all day. And one of the guys brought this in and said, if you haven't heard this, you need to hear it. And of course, I look at it, and what do I say? Oh, it's Time of the Season. Yeah, I've heard that song. And he's like, no, you haven't heard this album. He is right. This album, and seeing it on vinyl, like I'm kind of freaking out. I would love to have the vinyl. I'm looking at it going, oh, God. Song for Emily on vinyl has to be amazing, right?
Right. Or my favorite is Carousel 44, which is one of those like really
Psychedelic.
happy pop
Yes.
songs, but yet it's about someone writing a letter to their girlfriend or boyfriend who's in prison.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good. Yeah.
You know,
this
waiting
is an
for them to
album-
get out of prison.
Okay, so everybody here, if you have a turntable, get this album. If you don't, at least go download it and hear it, and then you'll run out and buy a record player because this is exciting. This, to me, is like having Sgt. Pepper. Like, if you're going to have vinyl, you better have certain albums because they're so satisfying as albums. And the whole experience, the album jacket, that's why I'm freaking out, the album jacket. I'm looking at it going, oh, God, I just want to sit and hold this and look at it and cuddle it and cry on it and then wipe it off real quick because I don't want to ruin the jacket. You know how it goes. Yeah, this is an excellent, excellent album. And they're still together. Did you know that? I'm on their Facebook page, and they tour all the time, and it's not one of these, like, Molly Hatchet touring. They're actually, like, trying to do things.
It's
interesting.
Like, well, the two main guys are Argent and Colin Blunstone.
Yeah.
I mean, those two are involved, so I guess.
And they broke up
Yeah.
before this album came out. That's another interesting thing about this. Time of the Season was the biggest hit they had. It was a huge hit. Everybody knows that song, right? Am I right? Yeah. Very quiet. We're killing them out there. Yeah, Who? No, it's not the Who. It's the Zombies. But when that album came out, they broke up, like, from what I understand, like a week or 2 weeks before Time of the Season came out. And, of course, that's like the biggest hit. And they didn't tour it. They did nothing with it. It's kind of amazing. It's a tragic story. And then years later, they reconcile, and they're out there doing their thing, and they're writing new music. But at this point, people aren't paying attention. And it's too bad because they are an amazing band. And his voice is just killer. Mm-hmm. It's like another guy's voice. I'm going to draw a blank, but I bet you're going to come up with it. The guy who sang on the Squeeze albums, and then he went on and he sang for Mike and the Mechanics. That's another vinyl that you'd want to have.
Paul Carrick.
Is it Paul Carrick? Is he the one? I can't remember.
He sang Tempted.
Yes, Paul Carrick.
But the main guys in
his
Squeeze
voice.
were he's
Different in Tilbrook.
He's an anomaly, yeah. It's like the guy who was with them for one album
But
had
his
their biggest
voice-
hit when really
his voice is
Difford and
gorgeous
Tilbrook
on
are
those.
the dudes.
Yeah, they are. Difford and Tilbrook. I actually have They did Squeeze albums, like Frank and some of those other ones that are all good. But didn't they do a couple that were just called Dilford? Yep.
Possibly,
Difford and
I don't
Tilbrook.
know. Yeah.
You don't know those?
Yeah.
I think they actually did a couple.
They probably did.
They're, once again, we talk about Lennon and McCartney. They're kind of Lennon and McCartney type guys. Like when you listen to them, you go, holy cow, these guys are songwriters.
Mm-hmm.
So do you ever get any like old musicians coming in there? Like somebody stumbles in and you're like, oh yeah, I was the guitar player for the Byrds. You ever get any of that in there? That you're
Not
aware
yet.
of? Not yet?
Well, we have live music there.
Oh, you do? When do you do that?
It's whenever we do it. We have a show.
You
There's no
record
like
guys,
set
you hippies,
day.
just hanging out.
Yeah. Well, we try to. Our next one will be the 28th of February, and it'll be this band, The Usuals, and another band.
Now, do
with
they
them.
play in the shop?
Yeah.
Cool. And do they plug in or is it
Yeah.
acoustic?
No, it's
loud.
a rock show.
So this will get loud in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what?
Well, we can I wouldn't say comfortably, but we can fit a 4-piece band with a drum set, even a 5-piece with a full drum behind the store, in the back area. And then everyone it's standing room and people sit and enjoy it. And
am I alone in this? Does that sound awesome? That sounds awesome. Plus, you're in a record store with all the vinyl around, and that. Once again, I always keep saying that. I've said this like 40 times tonight, but the smell. There's something about the smell of the vinyl and the paper. It's like book people, Book people are always like, you like to open the book and smell the book. It's the same kind of thing. There's something about the sensor. Maybe that's what it is. This is appealing to more than one sense. It's not just auditory.
right.
Yeah, it's textural, it's visual, it's everything. You know who the other, now that I'm thinking of album covers that I can't get enough of, the Jimi Hendrix album covers. I bet those go pretty quickly too.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously he's a great.
There's certain bands that are like almost, they were popular then, so they continue their popularity
Sure.
today. Certain
Sure.
ones. And then there's other ones who may not have sold 1 million albums, but yet they kind of have their niche in the musical canon. It might be like Doug Sam, who really only had one hit, Mendocino, but yet his albums are worth a lot of money because there weren't a lot of them out there.
Sure.
Or someone like that.
That's another question. That's the question I forgot before. We got back to it because of what you just said. We've talked about reissues. We've talked about used stuff. Do you get a lot of collectors that are looking for those, like the Butcher album from the Beatles? Do you get that kind of stuff in there? Or is that more...
There's a couple higher-end $100 kind of albums, but mostly the people coming in are just looking to buy some records to play,
So they
most
shouldn't
of them
be
are
intimidated
between
coming in there.
Yeah,
They should
most
be
of
coming
them
in for
are
music.
the used ones that start at $1, and I'd say they average $5 to $15. And even if someone buys, say, an $8 one, I said, you know what, nothing. We're in a coffee shop, but I said you could buy 2 cups of coffee for $8. And this record you'll have, if you take care of it, the rest of your life.
Well, and at that price, you could buy that and 2 cups of coffee.
Yeah.
And that sounds like a day to me. I'm all down with it.
Chris and I, our stores, I think, complement each other very well because...
Well, they do. When we first met Chris, one of the first things he did was drag me into your shop because he's like, I got somebody you got to meet. And, of course, talk about spot on, man. I walk in and I'm like, record store.
So I'll send people over here. He's sent people to my shop. People have sat here and they see the store kitty corner from this place and say, oh, let's go over to that record store.
We'll tweet each other's pictures across the picture. Rediscover, don't take a picture of being able to wave at each other. It's kind of funny. You guys, pictures of taking pictures. Yeah.
And then weird selfies, and then it gets into a whole area we don't want to know about, right? Well, on Chris's end anyway. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the last shot's just a picture of a broken record covered in coffee.
Yeah. Oh. Well, Rich, this was fantastic. Did you have anything else you wanted to bring up or talk about?
No, I covered the high points.
Okay. Give your website, give your address again, and absolutely, I speak for Martha and I on this, we would love to do something like that week before, just a little listening party before we do the podcast and really try to get something happening.
Before you talk, Rich does a great job of when he gets new things in of tweeting it out and putting it on Facebook.
Yeah,
so maybe like when it comes, like one day he had a bunch of Smith stuff, and I was like, oh, I want to come in and buy it. By the time I got there, like a day or two later, it was gone. So
I was going to say I was on your website yesterday, and today I was busy, but I was on the website yesterday, and I was leafing through, and great website. Like, I saw so many things, I'm like, and it was all your, like, new things that came in. I'm like, oh, I want it, want it, want it, want it. You're a dangerous man. That's what I'm going to say.
Actually, the guy who does I monitor it and add the content and everything, but the guy who did it is right here in town. He comes here, Bart.
Oh, it's Bart? I know Bart.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, the store is Rediscover Records. It's at 9 South Spring Street right here in downtown Elgin, and the address is easier to remember if you just think of the White Album, number 9, number 9, number 9. Because if I tell you 9 South Spring, it's like, what was the address? But if you think, oh, number 9.
Yeah. Tweak that music
The website is rediscoverrecords.com, and I did bring pins. Normally you have to buy something to get a pin, but I brought everyone here. I think I have enough, a little pin. So,
Quincy's already up here. Do you tweet at all? Do you do that? Any other social media we need to know about?
The Twitter is, well, it's an abbreviation of Rediscover Records. I mean, if you search Rediscover Records,
it's going to pop up.
Yeah.
So what is it? Do you know it?
It's REDSCVR Records. REC.
Yeah. If my Twitter ever opens, I'm going to actually sign up
at
for it
Rediscover
right now.
Records.
Very cool. Well, Rich, this was awesome. Thank
you, Rob. Yeah.
So
Thank you very
much for coming over. Please come and talk to us again.
I will.
Thank you, everybody. This has been Live at the Blue Box, Input Junkie Satellite.